MAGA voters are losing their jobs, their farms, their businesses, and now they want sympathy from the people they left behind. Welcome back to Mind Mirror. Let's get into it.
My husband just got an email saying that he lost his job because of the tariffs. He's a cargo pilot, and we voted for the lady. We didn't vote for this. This is so uncool. It's like, what are they trying to do? Like, what is happening? I'm sorry that happened, babe. Are you alright?
It's alright. I guess I can
He'll look for another
get
job.
a truck driver.
The pilot.
Trump's recent federal job cuts since being in office overwhelmingly impact black people more than anyone else in the country, greatly impacting the black middle class, in some cases destabilizing and removing it from existence. Purge on federal employees has been the most widespread thing he's enacted since he's been in office, under the guise of removing federal waste, but this greatly impacts the black middle class and black families more than anyone else. The federal government is the largest employer in the United States with just over 3 million workers. Compared to our share in the U.S., 14.8%, black people make up a disproportionately higher share of federal civilian workforce, over 18.5%, as well as staffs most cabinet level and independent agencies with 1,000 or.
Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The federal government was quietly the greatest equalizer for black middle class stability in this country, 18.5% of the federal workforce. When you only make up 14.8% of the population. That's not an accident. That's generations of people finding the one door that couldn't be slammed as easily, and now that door is getting blown off its hinges under the label of cutting waste. The people cheering that label never asked whose stability was built behind it, 1 month away from lower class. That's how fragile this is. 1 month.
More employees, according to data as of September of last year. The over-index of black workers can be seen within federal agencies. Data shows that black Americans make up 30% of Department of Education, 20% of Department of Health and Human Services, 24% of Veterans Affairs. Black workers are finding themselves hyper-targeted because in addition to the federal job layoffs, they are also enacting the cancellation of DEI initiatives and programs that actually helped black people retain and get jobs. Having a government job within the black community was seen as the ultimate sign of stability and the ultimate sign of you finally reached the middle class, a middle class that is so fragile that you are less than 1 month away from being back into a lower class individual in this country. So with all the things that are happening right now, it is going to be an interesting thing to see as to what happens with black people with their jobs. Yet somehow this is supposed to be making us great again.
So have we seen this guy here? So evidently he is a Trump supporter. He voted for Trump all 3 times. And he has a small business where he exports, I guess, wheels from China. And he is upset because the new tariffs that have been placed on China will drastically hurt his business. So he took to TikTok and complained about that. And then when people said, well, I'm sorry, you fucked around and found out, this is the find out part, he came back on and crying, well, not literally crying, but complaining and whining about how people are taking joy in him and his family suffering. This man is a 3-time Trump supporter. He was aware the tariffs were going to take effect. He just thought that somehow magically Trump would have in place the infrastructure that manufacturing could be switched here to the United States before the tariffs took an effect. So obviously he has no clue what kind of commitment that would take and what kind of time frame that would take. That's not something that was going to happen.
3 times. He voted 3 times and built his entire livelihood importing wheels from China. Like man, the tariff policy was never hidden. It was the centerpiece, and he genuinely believed that somehow, magically the manufacturing infrastructure would materialize before the pain hit him. Switching manufacturing back to the U.S. takes a decade minimum. Not an executive order, not a press conference, a full decade of capital investment and supply chain restructuring. He knew about the policy. He just assumed he'd be the exception, and now when people say, well, you knew, he wants to talk about people being mean to his family. That's not cruelty from the other side. That's just cause and effect showing up on schedule.
In the first year of Trump's presidency, or any of the years of Trump's presidency, it's going to take a good decade if we truly try to switch manufacturing from overseas back to the United States, and not to mention the cost of goods being manufactured in the United States. So he's on here crying that people are being mean because it's his real family that is suffering. Yet he's aware of the Trump policies enough to know about the tariffs. Then he obviously knew about the attacks on marginalized communities, the attacks on immigrants, the attacks on the trans community, the attacks on the working class, the attack on our Social Security, on our Medicare, our Medicaid, the attack on the Affordable Care Act. I bet you dollars to donuts he is benefiting. If he's a small business and an independent business, I'll bet you dollars to donuts he's through his state's health exchange that was set up by the ACA, and that's how him and his family are getting health insurance. But he didn't care about any of that. He didn't care how it was affecting any other person when he voted for Trump. He just wanted to see those brown people gone and his grocery prices down and America being great again. Yet look, you fucked around, you found out, now you're feeling the pain. Don't come crying to us, expecting us to give you sympathy.
Let's talk about the Trump supporters that are losing their jobs. Last night I was out in Chicago and these three guys started talking to me and they were all from Naperville. And they asked what I did for work and I said, oh, like I make educational content. And the guy was like, oh, are you one of those like liberals? Like, are you one of those like lefties? And he was so serious. Like he just continued to like mock me and make fun of my content. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this conversation. And he goes, yeah, it's because of you guys that my mom just lost her job. And I was intrigued. I was like, why did your mom lose her job? What did she do for work? And he goes, oh, well, she was in the military. She's a veteran, but then she was working at this office for the last few years and they just let her go. I look him dead in the face. I'm like, do you think your mom was a DEI hire? Because veterans are a protected class. And now that they don't have to hire her anymore, then they let her go. He goes, that's so true. He doesn't believe me. He looks it up and just the color just like drains from his face. And the guy with him was a research assistant after just graduating from university. And his position was just terminated because of lack of federal funding from the federal government, which is thanks to...
She walked into a random bar conversation and delivered a clinic. This guy was mocking her, calling her a lefty, being condescending, and in the same breath blamed her for his mom losing her job. So she asked the one question that shattered him. Do you think your mom was a DEI hire? Because veterans are a protected class. The color drained from his face. And his friend right next to him, fresh out of university, research assistant, also gone because federal funding evaporated. DEI was never just one group. It was a legal framework protecting veterans, disabled workers, women, all kinds of people. When you cheer the demolition of protections you assume don't apply to you. The rubble is always more personal than you planned.
Fucking Trump. So newsflash, DEI doesn't just mean black people. So in fact, what's happening on a federal level is going to affect you too. You aren't special just because you're white. Karma's getting them. Okay, bye.
Breaking news. Donald Trump's Bureau of Labor Statistics, after he threw the former person out because he didn't like the jobs number, gets only 22,000 job increase in August. What? Yes, only 22,000 job increase after Donald Trump throws out the lady that had been there for 30 to 40 years, working in the department forever, knowing what she's doing, and his guy, E.J. Antoni, that came from the Heritage Foundation, only could find 22,000 jobs produced in the month of August. They're expecting 75,000. This also is an uptick in the unemployment rate from 4.2 to 4.3%. The economy is doing very poorly under Donald Trump. His tariffs, his management of the economy, the immigration impacts are all negative, negative, negative. And not to mention, we've all seen what's happening to prices out of control.
They're finding out the hard way. The town of Bonner, Montana used to be all about lumber and good-paying factory jobs that kept families afloat. The exact types of jobs that Trump said he would bring back. But instead, Bonner's siding plant just shut down, leaving 104 workers out in the cold. Brandon Bearfield, a Trump voter, said, everyone wants to point fingers and say, oh, it's politics that did it. We all lost our jobs. It doesn't really matter who we voted for. It's like, Brandon, you literally voted to lose your job. Troy Fisher worked in mills for 40 years and said they gave up on us. It's like, Troy, Republicans have always given up on working class people. You're just realizing this now? Mike Brush planned on buying land and building a cabin. And now, I don't see much opportunity for any of us, he says. And get this, the jobs that are out there near Bonner now pay $5 less an hour and include no benefits. Meanwhile, housing prices in Missoula, which is right next to Bonner, jumped from $350,000 to almost $600,000. Some of the workers in Bonner were already living out of their trucks before they got laid off. And just a couple words of advice, if you're forced to live out of your truck, you should probably stop voting for the party.
Bonner, Montana. A town built on exactly the kind of jobs that were promised back, 104 workers gone, and these guys are genuinely out here saying, it doesn't matter who we voted for. IT matters. Brandon, Troy worked mills for 40 years and only now realizes the party he backed gave up on working class people. Long ago, jobs nearby pay $5 less per hour with zero benefits. Housing jumped from $350,000 to $600,000, and workers were already sleeping in their trucks. Before the layoffs, that's not a rough patch. That's a community being quietly dismantled, while still defending the people doing the dismantling. If you are living out of your truck, the party gutting worker protections is not on your team. The math has never been more obvious.
A Trump supporter has just lost their job directly because of Donald Trump's policies, and they are in a state of confusion. They are reaching out to Donald Trump for help and thinking that this should not have happened to them. Take a look at this. This person says, my wife is a nurse and was recently hired by the VA. Our home is packed up. We have a new home, spent thousands to move from Fort Worth to Waco. Following Trump's hiring freeze, the VA rescinded her job offer. Now look at what's highlighted. We are all huge Trump supporters, and I know this was an unintended consequence. What do you mean it was unintended? Did they really believe that Donald Trump could create policies that would only affect non-Trump voters, that somehow Trump voters wouldn't be caught up in all of this? This is the find out phase. This is exactly what you voted for, someone who would sow chaos. And it's not just going to affect the people you don't like, it will affect you too. And now all I can think is that this guy and his family are singing, I never thought.
Donald Trump is destroying the American economy. New data is showing that for the first time since 2021, there are more people unemployed and looking for jobs than there are job openings. These numbers expose the truth that Donald Trump's policies are crippling the middle class, and that's why he wants to fire all of the people responsible for releasing these numbers and replace them with loyalists who will release fake ones. Check this out.
But this JOLTS report essentially revealed that there are fewer jobs available than those that are looking for those jobs. So in the month of July, it reveals that there are 7.18 million jobs open, and there are 7.2 million people who are unemployed looking for jobs.
Additionally, a new jobs report just came out for August saying that the U.S. only added 5,400 jobs, making another month of below expectation job growth. All of this is, of course, directly tied to Donald Trump's tariffs. This is why Trump is fighting so hard to fire all of the numbers people in our government, because numbers don't lie. They are exposing the truth about his failed economy and policies, and he can't hide from it. Wages are stagnant, nobody can get a job, and the numbers keep falling short of expectations. Trump promised to bring back manufacturing and protect American workers, but his tariffs have done the exact opposite. In fact, here's a look at the manufacturing jobs under Donald Trump. As you can tell, yeah, the tariffs aren't really working. But Trump cares more about his own ego or being right than he does helping the American people, because he would rather hide from the truth than fix his mistakes.
Stack the numbers up because they're brutal. More unemployed people than job openings for the first time since 2021. Only 5,400 jobs added in August, unemployment ticking up, and when the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases numbers that sting, the response is to fire the 30-year veteran running it and replace her with a loyalist. The loyalists' numbers came back worse. That's the thing about economic reality. You can swap the messenger, but you cannot swap the math. Manufacturing has bled jobs every single month since the Liberation Day tariffs, 8 months straight. You cannot fire your way to a better economy. You can only delay the moment the truth becomes undeniable.
Ohio, mass layoffs at 11 companies. You heard me correctly. Ohio, the red state that voted for Taco Trump, double digits, is getting a taste of FAFO. Ohio is experiencing mass layoffs, and the fun is just beginning, because the economy has not even really started to see the wave of layoffs yet. As a reminder, companies stocked up on items to avoid tariffs. So we haven't seen the shortage yet, but it's coming. Companies are not spending money. They're not hiring. They're only laying off. So Ohio, this is your FAFO. Vote Republican. People who don't care about you. A 34-time convicted rapist who's gone bankrupt 4 times. Keep voting Republican. Keep voting Republican and learning the same really, really hard lesson that Republicans only care about themselves and their rich friends. enjoy your FAFO.
So you said that he created jobs, right? Under his economy so far, we've seen unemployment increase. We've seen the jobs reports actually become so bad that he fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, claiming that it was politically biased information. And then he put someone else into the office of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they indicated even less jobs for the next month after, right? So what I've seen is that he's actually had a trend down in jobs under his administration. So how could you say that he's created jobs so far?
I mean, I think the economy is doing pretty well, man. I mean, I don't know. You look at, businesses are making more than they've ever made. Wages seem to be going up overall. I don't know. You'd probably know the statistics better than I. Are wages decreasing?
Wages have gone up at a lower rate than what they would have if it was the case that Trump never imposed the tariff. Secondly, you said the economy was doing pretty well. We've seen. Let me please finish.
You have a crystal ball. How can you say something would have been true that never happened?
Oh, sorry. We know what the impact is of tariffs, and we can see the impact on tariffs, particularly in the context of the market. And I was giving explicit examples, but you decided to cut me off.
Ford and GM are laying off workers? What happened to all the electric vehicle investment? Trump happened. He killed the EV incentives and slapped tariffs on car parts. Now costs are up, demand is down, and jobs are toast. But tariffs are supposed to help American workers. Yeah, if you ignore how supply chains work. U.S. automakers need parts from around the world. Donnie Doofus just made them more expensive. But wait, those EV incentives were for our manufacturers, right? Yeah, they were helping Ford and GM compete against Tesla. The company making a ton of cars in China. Tesla makes cars in China? Yep, more than half of their almost 2 million global deliveries. Meanwhile, Ford and GM were hiring here until Trump pulled the plug. But he's pro-America.
This back and forth is doing the work that a lot of expensive analysts fail to do. EV incentives existed so Ford and GM could compete. They were hiring, building, investing in American plants, pull the incentives, slap tariffs on foreign car parts, and suddenly American automakers are bleeding while the company making more than half its cars in China just keeps rolling. Pro-America policy somehow handed the future of transportation to China on a silver platter. And the line at the end, I really got to stop voting based on hats. That's the most honest thing said in this entire video, because that's genuinely what happened. A feeling, a vibe, a piece of branded merchandise. And Ford workers are now paying for that vibe with their livelihoods.
Right, which is why he's wrecking U.S. automakers and helping China dominate EVs. This don't make no damn sense. Oh, it will. When Trump reverses course, restores the incentives, and claims victory for saving the domestic EV market. He wouldn't. Oh, he absolutely would. And his supporters will eat it up like it's the first time it happened. Man, I really gotta stop voting based on hats. You think?
And the situation is even worse on the manufacturing front. This is roughly April when the president rolled out his Liberation Day tariffs, and you can see the manufacturing sector has lost jobs every single month since then, losing jobs 8 months in a row. So that manufacturing jobs boom that the president has promised, it has not arrived, at least not yet. When you look at the numbers overall last year, the U.S. economy gained less than 600,000 jobs. That's the worst for any year outside of a recession since 2003.
But the bigger story that is, really taking storm right now is the fact that the Daily Wire just laid off approximately 50 to 60% of their staffers. We've both been to the Daily Wire studio in Nashville, and it is a massive compound. We can talk about the compound in 1 second, but my main takeaway from this is that all of these conservatives who are saying that, politics is just kind of boring right now, nobody's really paying attention, so people are leaving the Daily Wire and we have to fire people, tells me that the Daily Wire is doing something very, very wrong, because you and I have been growing and pushing back on these lies. And right now, there is a war that many Americans are paying attention to and many Americans care about. So if the Daily Wire, which is a company that focuses a lot on the Middle East, on certain wars, on certain conflicts, on Israel, on all of these Middle Eastern topics, if they can't hold the attention of the American public on this war, it must be because the war is failing. The war is unpopular, and they don't know how to take a popular position on this. So just to loop it back around, we're seeing throughout MAGA media an entire meltdown that is parallel to the meltdown that is happening within this administration. As Donald Trump spirals, loses his mind, when
the media machine built to defend an administration starts laying off 50 to 60% of its staff, that's not a business story. That's a symptom. She's right that the psychological toll of defending indefensible positions shows up eventually. In the content, in the ratings, in the cuts. You can only spin job losses, trade chaos, and rising prices as winning for so long before your audience stops believing it. And when belief erodes, the clicks dry up. The ad money follows, and suddenly the compound in Nashville starts feeling very empty. The implosion of MAGA media and the implosion and upheaval inside the administration itself are running on the exact same timeline. That's not a coincidence. That's a feedback loop collapsing under its own weight.
The polls continue to drop, and as this war backfires, the people who have to defend this war are also having a psychological toll taken on them. Of course, there's a Jennings of it all, but I've talked about that before. The Daily Wire imploding is huge. This is a seismic shift for independent media and the way things work, and here we are every single day pushing back against these lies with facts, facts, facts. So
my husband's really liberal aunt is upstairs, and I really like her a lot, but we don't talk politics. And she lost her job a few months ago, and she keeps blaming Trump. But the reality is she lost her job because Denver overspent by millions on the migrant crisis. And because of it, they had to cut services to citizens and cut jobs to Denver city employees.
Mike Johnston announced earlier this month that the city would cut budgets. He warned hourly employees would lose some work. Now we know they could lose all of their work. The rec department tells us everyone from front desk workers to coaches to lifeguards are considered on-call employees that could be impacted by these cuts. The department has been told to cut $4.3 million to help the city pay for the migrant crisis.
And this has been happening in a lot of cities. In New York, Chicago, they overspent on the migrant crisis under the guise of, compassion. But now, because of that compassion, actual citizens are losing their jobs. Do you guys think I should go say anything? It's just unfortunate that we can't talk about facts with liberals or they'll lose their minds.
U.S. farmers are starting to regret their vote for Trump. From beekeepers to soybean to hay producers, all of them are starting to say, I never thought that voting for Trump 3 times would result in me losing tens of thousands of dollars. A beekeeper out of North Carolina says, yeah, I proudly voted for Trump all 3 times. I flew flags for him and put signs for him in the yard. But now I'm out tens of thousands of dollars due to lost federal funding and tariffs, so I cannot export my products, my honey and my wax, to other countries like I could before, and nobody's buying it in the United States. Hay producers in Idaho and Utah that export alfalfa hay to China are now seeing 135% tariffs put on their product, and all of a sudden, they don't have anywhere to ship it. They held it all winter in hopes of sending it off to China in the spring, and
a beekeeper, hay farmers, soybean producers, flags in the yard, signs at the gate voted 3 times each, and here's what actually happened. While they were being loyal, China didn't wait around to feel the pain. China adapted. Brazil became the #1 soybean exporter. Other countries picked up honey, beeswax, hay, all of it. Relationships that American farmers spent decades building got torched in a single policy announcement, and China just diversified and moved on. The farmers are sitting on product they can't move, holding it through winter hoping the deal comes back. The deal's not coming back, and the countries that replace them are not going to hand those contracts back out of sentiment. That's the part that should haunt every single one of those I never thought voters. The world didn't pause while they waited to find out.
now China's not willing to buy. Soybean producers are once again being hit harder than they were in the first Trump administration, and China, for its part, has diversified where it pulls these products from, with Brazil becoming the #1 soybean exporter and other countries picking up the slack for honey, for beeswax, and for hay around the world. Now, China's doing a great job diversifying, and the United States has relied on exports to China for so long that its farmers are going to just continue to suffer. Once again, the majority of them voted for Trump, and now they're finding out.
From the cargo pilot's wife to the Montana mill workers, from the beekeeper who can't sell his honey to the nurse whose job offer vanished the day she finished packing. Every story in this video follows the same arc. Someone voted for a specific kind of chaos. The chaos arrived, and they were genuinely surprised it knocked on their door. Policies are not abstract. They are mortgages and careers and families sleeping in trucks, and when the numbers get inconvenient, the answer apparently is to fire whoever's counting them. So here's the question I want in the comments. At what point does the pain finally outweigh the loyalty? Drop it below. Like, share, subscribe. We'll be here every day with the facts.